Good afternoon and welcome to the Office of Research Regulatory Affairs, Research Matters. I'm Scott Myers, the Clinical Research Educator for the Office of Research Regulatory Affairs, and I will be one of the moderators for today's session. I'm going to quickly go over some housekeeping items. If you have any questions for our presenters during today's session, please type them in the Q&A. One of the moderators will respond to you during the session, or we will address it at the end of the presentations. This session is being recorded, and you can watch it again right after it's finished by clicking on the Microsoft Teams live link in the email invitation. We'll also send you the slides via email. You can find the links to future meetings, slides, handouts, and past recordings on Aura's Research Matters website under the Training and Resources page. We do provide a certificate of attendance for those who have logged in using a valid email address. If you do not receive one via email but should have, please send an email to hrpp@utsouthwestern.edu to request a certificate. Lastly, we want to hear from you. We use the information you provide to plan for future topics you would like us to cover during these sessions. You may also let us know how our speakers did and how our office is doing. So please, as always, take a few minutes to complete the survey to provide your feedback. You may access the survey using your phone via the QR code or your computer by selecting the link. I will also drop the link for the survey in the Q&A in just a minute. Okay, we have a brief agenda for you today. William Ali from our Quality Assurance and Monitoring team will present to you about proper study documentation using the Alcoa Plus principles. Then we will conclude with an open Q&A session. So with that, I will turn it over to William. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wiam Ali. I'm a regulatory monitoring analyst at the Quality Team UT Southwestern. Today, we'll be presenting Alcoa Plus principles. So due to the importance of protecting the data accuracy, consistency, and integrity, it felt imperative to create guidelines that protect the data from loss and distortion. So that led to the establishment of Alcoa Plus principles. First, they were created as only 5 criteria represented by the acronym ALCOA, which refer to attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. And down the road, to expand the level of security and protection, they added the plus to the acronym, which represent additional 4 criteria where they were complete, consistent, enduring, and available. And currently, they have added additional plus to the ALCOA acronym, which represents the traceable criteria or component. So traceable is, as I mentioned, has been added recently, and it's still under the guidelines for traceable still under the draft phase. So the Alcoa principles has been in use by big bodies such as the FDA and the World Health Organization, the Good Manufacturer Practice. And due to its importance and from our day-to-day activities as monitors reviewing data, we felt the need to refresh our knowledge about the Alcoa principles, just to make sure or help maintain the features of accuracy, consistency, validity, and integrity for the data collected at UT Southwestern. So in the next slides, we're gonna break down those components and define each part of the acronym. So first component or criteria is attributable. Attributable means that all paper and electronic data must be attributable to the person generating the data, including who performed an action and when. Attributable can be accomplished by recording manually by initialing and dating a paper record or by an audit trail in an electronic system. So if you see here in the slides in this example, to the left, we had a correction completed in the source, but there is no track of the person who completed the correction or when and the reason why it was corrected. So to the right side, we have the correct practice of initialing the correction or signing it, and we have a date, and we have a reason for the correction. So the next component is legible. Legible means data must be easily readable and understandable throughout their life cycle. This includes maintaining consistent formatting in electronic paper records and avoiding abbreviations or other jargon that may introduce ambiguity. So if you see in this example, it's unclear to determine the number. So we have to have the number written in a format that could be readable and clear. Sometimes even with some numbers, they could be confused with each other, such as number 1 and number 7. We have to make sure that we write them down clearly in a way that could be distinguished. So the next component is contemporaneous. Contemporaneous means to record the paper or electronic data at the time it was performed. This recording helps minimize the risk of information loss or distortion. It also supports accurate and reliable documentation for critical events. So we have to have date and stamps for each workflow that we complete or conduct. We cannot backdate it. We cannot record expected results for tests that wasn't even executed or performed. So if you see here in this example, the time in the machine shows 14:45. So the correct practice is to transcribe the exact time in the source documents for this study to follow the contemporaneous aspect of Alcoa. Next component is original. Original data, paper or electronic, provides a reliable, reusable source of information for analysis, audits, and regulatory compliance. So data should be always recorded on its original format or in a copy that's verified as being accurate. If we have any changes, we need always to perform the original data, and we have to document the changes clearly in the source. And as we mentioned in the second slide, that if we have a correction, that we need to initial it and date it and put a reason. So we have to keep the original data, even if it's incorrect. We cannot remove or erase any data from the source. In addition to that, if we use a blank word copy to collect vital signs for one of the study procedures. So when we collect that, we have to keep this original copy. And if we want to transcribe the data in the source that we utilize for the study, we can do that, but we have to mark it as transcribed, and we keep the original, so we don't have the original data removed or erased or discarded. Next component is accurate. Accurate means that data must be complete and free from errors or omissions. So it should reflect the true values, observations, or results obtained during data collection or processing. For example, if we have a batch of products by manufacturer that need to be tested for quality, so we need to collect the results and record the actual results if even if the product failed the quality test. Even if we know that the patch will be discarded, we still need to have an accurate data, a trusted data to be documented. So now we're going to explain, or we're going to review or detail the plus component of the Alcoa acronym. The plus component represents complete, consistent, enduring, available. So we're going to review all these 4 criteria and explain them in detail. So complete means all relevant data is captured, including all necessary information and documentation, which means if we have a clinical study that we need to collect an adverse event, severe adverse event, when we collect them, we need to collect all relevant data, such as the cause for the event, the duration of the event, when it was occurred, the status of the event related to the study or study drug or study device or not, treated or not, all relevant data to be collected and recorded in the subject source. Next component is consistent. Consistent means data recording practices are uniform and standardized regardless of the data source or record, which means that we have to ensure that data can be compared and analyzed across different data sources and records. For example, If we have two lab techs that want to perform the same test on the same sample, the test results should be like consistent with each other. The other component is enduring. Enduring means that it is preserved over time and remains accessible and usable. So data should be stored in a way that ensures long-term availability and accessibility. Enduring means that if we have, like let's say we have electronic source or software that we utilize for data collection, we need to have a copy or of like a data in a format such as PDF or CSV to utilize later in the future if needed, in case the software is no longer available. The last component of the PLUS principle, PLUS like acronym is available. Available means data can be retrieved whenever needed. As I mentioned, all paper source and electronic source supposed to be available whenever needed or requested, let's say by auditors, by inspectors. So we have to label or index the data appropriately in a way that we can retrieve them easily whenever needed. And that's supposed to be done throughout, and the data is supposed to be available throughout the life cycle of the study and even the lifetime of source retention. And last, we have the traceable component, which is referred to as the second plus in the ALCOA principle acronym. A traceable, as I mentioned, this one is just implemented recently and is still in the draft phase, and it means that we ensure that the data is traceable throughout the entire process and its life cycle, including all changes made. So if you see in this example here, we have details of who completed whichever event or procedure and what was completed exactly in details and how it was completed, like the procedures or the event, how it was completed. And we need to be able to trace this forward and backward. So in summary, the ALCOA principles to be followed, we need to know exactly who's the owner of the source. If we complete any changes or revisions in the source documents, that we need to know who performed those changes, when it was performed, and the reason for performing the changes. We need to have an access control on the data to protect its confidentiality and integrity. And we need to have a data that it's an original copy, and we need to make sure that it's labeled and indexed in a way that makes it available to be retrieved whenever needed by inspectors or for audits throughout the life cycle of the study, or even after after the retention, during the source retention period. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Please let us know if you have any questions, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, William. Okay, everyone, we're going to move into our open Q&A session. So I invite you to submit any questions or comments that you may have at this time. And I'll just pause for a few seconds to allow some time if you need to type up any questions. While we wait for you to get them typed up, I just want to remind you of the survey. If you can just spend a few minutes to complete the questions, we will use the information to improve the content of these sessions and our presentation of them. We will also be able to see what areas we need to work on in the office and what areas we are excelling in. Thank you. I'll just give everyone another minute to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, I do have One question here, what to do if original source is destroyed by the PI and she doesn't want to retain it for security reasons? Let me publish that. I know Manali's replying, going to do a text reply to that, but do either of you want to speak to that as well?
Sure, I can take that question, Scott. So thank you for this question. For this kind of situation, if the original source is destroyed by the PI, that is a non-compliance because source is required for verification of the data. Like CRF is not the only source that we can use. We do need to have a source data verification. Hence, this needs to be reported as a reportable event in the IRB, and a CAPA needs to be submitted as well on what you would do to prevent this occurrence from happening again in the future. You may reach out to us and we can help you out with the CAPA and even drafting the reportable event. So feel free to email us and we can help.
Thank you, Manali. And I think we have another question that's probably the same outcome. They say they don't have the original source, just the calculated values from the source.
Again, my answer will remain the same. In this case, you would have to explain exactly what was lost, when it was, when was this data collected, and all that information. We may have to talk about like what kind of data is remaining still with the study, and if that's enough to report the results in an integral manner. So yeah, to summarize, my comment will remain the same as to submit the event and create a CAPA plan, that it doesn't occur in the future.
Thank you, Manali. Anybody have any other questions? I'll give just a moment longer in case anybody has anything they'd like to add. Okay, I don't see any new questions, so I want to thank our presenter, William, and thank you all for attending today's session. Oh, sorry, we do have one more question. Excuse me. This seems to be a follow-up question. Is the data still usable for publication without the original source verified?
I believe it's from the same person who gave the question. I would have to look more into this study in order to provide a suitable answer. So if you can just reach out to us, give us the STU number, and we can help you out that way.
Okay. All right. So the next Research Matters session is scheduled for July 15th, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you.